Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you have never been here before, I'm Jamie. I read a ton of books. And this is my end of week 2 update, since I didn't get a week 1 update, so kind of middle of the month. Yeah, that whole weekly update thing, obviously this was not the month for that. But we did get a video, finally, before week 3 ended. By a little bit. It's the 17th, we're not there yet. Actually, the number of books between now and the 21st, which would be week 3, might be a little bit skewed because Dewey's Readathon is this weekend. I'm stepping back from being lead admin sort of as we go along. I'm still definitely an admin for Dewey's right now, and kind of sort of still lead admin, but I'm transitioning out of that. So what that means is that the day of the readathon, I'm still running the readathon, because we still don't have any other admins that do all 24 hours. And the part that everybody else is asleep for, if I'm not doing that part, then it's not covered by an admin, which is fun. So I do a lot of the day of stuff still, but I haven't been doing as much of the other stuff. And we have a good admin team. They're running everything pretty well. There's obviously a little bit of hiccups and figuring out how we're doing things differently if I'm not doing the things I normally do. But that's to be expected. When I took over, it was a very abrupt transition, and it was not nice. I understand these things happen, but we're going to try and not do that this time. So, So Dewey's Readathon is this weekend. I have not been saying as much about it because I've been overwhelmed with other stuff, which is why all this is happening anyway. I'm still kind of attached to it, so we'll see. Anyway, so long story short, there will be a lot of reading in the next 3 days connected with Dewey's. Maybe not as many print books, and you'll notice when I show what I've finished so far for the month of October that my print book stack is short. For reasons, actually. Because a friend of mine in our stitching group has a bit of a quandary. So her partner promised a whole bunch of hats to a charity thing that she does, but she wasn't gonna do it this season because she didn't have anything finished in time, and it just wasn't gonna happen. And so her partner promised the hats anyway, and we have a couple weeks to finish a bunch of hats for her to help her get the numbers to where they're ready to hand off. So, so we're all frantically making hats. She's still making the bulk of them, but we are helping so she can get 300 hats by like mid-November. So I finished a couple. I already handed off the ones I finished last week, but this one I finished last night, and then this one I finished today, and it's got fringy stuff. Let me unfold it. So it's got a band of novelty yarn on the brim. properly vertical and fold it over. It's either a fringy band or it could actually be right around the face, just depending on how much you fold it. So that's how I'd probably wear it, because I don't like it to be on my face, but yeah, kind of reminds me of a jellyfish, actually. But yeah, so I've finished 2 in the last 24 hours, and I've got a bunch more that are closer to finished. This one is done using Karen's Simply Soft, so it's shiny, and here's the skein in there. This one uses a different size hook. I use an H hook on this one, J hook on the other 2 that I finished. This is the one I was working on Dee Dee's Craft Sprints trial run. So it's got plum purple on top, variegated black and white, and then some orange and some off-white. So we're supposed to try and make them so each hat is kind of unique. So I'm using up a lot of scraps. It's very nice. And I'm doing mostly top down. There's one crocheted cables hat that I've wanted to try again and try and memorize the pattern a little bit. So I might do some that are from the brim up instead of from the crown down. But mostly I start with the top and grow the hat out to where it's as big as it's going to need to be, and then just do vertical sides. So pretty basic hat. The one thing, I don't remember if it was on a Sprints or where it was, but the one thing that I do that I find really nice is I do post stitches for the double crochet 2 in the same stitch parts of the hat. If you do crocheted hats, to grow the hat, you start with a small center and then you do 2 stitches in the same stitch instead of just 1. And then the next row you do 2 and then 1 and 2 and then 1. And you keep doing the 2 stitches in 1 stitch, basically in the second stitch of the previous 2 stitches in 1 stitch. And it creates a nice, gradual growth for the top of the hat. I don't do crochet videos because that's my trying to explain crochet in a video. Totally not my part of YouTube. But what it means is that then I can see those post stitches. They make it that ridge. So the ridges are the post stitches, and I can see where they are. So I don't have to try and count. I can work in poor lighting and still be able to find where I doubled the stitches and that kind of stuff. So I like that. And then it also means that they look different. And I can continue those post stitches down the sides or whatever I feel like doing once I get done growing the hat. So that's what I've been doing, which means my plans for physical books this month, I was going to do a bunch of crime novels and things like that this month, did not quite pan out. I still might fit in a few, but I can't do a physical book and crochet a hat at the same time. I don't have enough hands. I know Zaphod Babelbrox in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has a third arm. That would work. With a third arm, that extra one could hold the book while I crochet. Short of that, I've been doing a lot of screen reading and a lot of audiobooks. So yeah, Oh, and I have one purple hat. This one actually was originally a bag, and it's still not really small enough yet. It's way bigger than it should be to be a hat. But I'm going to pull it back a few more rows until it's actually where I'd stop for the crown of the hat. And then just do vertical sides. Because I've had this partially finished bag sitting around in my stash forever. And it's just acrylic. The pattern is the same until you get to where it keeps growing for the bag, or it doesn't if it's a hat. So I basically will have 5 done probably by midday tomorrow. So that's my plan. And I might start another one because I do like the stripy ones. And most of what I've got going right now is all one color. So yeah. Anyway, so that's why my plans have changed a little bit. I have finished. Oh my goodness, my kittens are crazy. I've finished 3 print books so far. And actually one of these is mostly finished but not quite. And I will probably finish a couple more by the end of the month. I found audiobooks for a couple of the books I have in print. So that's helping. It does mean that then I can't get more audiobooks after a certain point because I've run out of audiobooks for Hoopla. There is that, but it is what it is. My goal was to get to where I was caught up with the Number One Ladies Detective Agency series by Alexander McCall Smith. And I'm going to be closer. I finished book 17, Precious and Grace, today, because I was able to find the audiobook for it. And then the one that I'm partially finished with now is The House of Unexpected Sisters by the same author. This is book 18. So by the time I go to bed, probably both of those are done. I may have a little bit left in the one I haven't finished yet that I'll listen to tomorrow while I'm getting ready for work. But probably it'll be done tonight. We'll see. And then I finished one print book that I've been meaning to get to forever. The sequel to Blindness by Jose Saramago. This is Seeing by Jose Saramago. I like this one better than Blindness. I liked Blindness. It was a 5-star. But being a political science nerd, and political theory in particular, there's some of that kind of idea in Blindness, but it's more sociology than political science. Seeing is very much political science and political theory and democracy and voting and authoritarianism and the nature of power in a democracy and all that fun stuff. Yeah. It may have been an accident that I wound up as a graduate student in political science, but it was probably not a terrible accident because, I might be slightly a nerd in that direction. Just a little bit. Anyway. So, this was a really good book. 5 stars. Highly recommend. Fair warning. It is very political theory. It's not to a point where you wouldn't get it if you're not into that kind of stuff. But if that's a trigger for you right now, given the nature of American democracy, It's very timely, and not everyone is looking for that right now. If you're looking for an escape from that, maybe wait on this book a little bit, because it will very much call to mind what's going on right now. Yeah. So, 3 whole print books. Does that mean I've only finished 3 whole books? No, actually it hasn't. Hasn't? Grammar. Oh my goodness. No, it does not mean I only finished 3 books. I have finished 24, soon to be 25 books so far this month. So a few more than 3 books. So the rest of them are not in print. I started off actually not with Seeing, but with a few books on my computer. So I started out with Constituent Service by John Scalzi, which is an arc I had that drew me in. It's got aliens on it. It was fun. And yeah, it was 5 stars. I definitely liked the aliens. Then we had North Sun by Ethan Rutherford. The John Scalzi book came out on the 3rd, so it has just come out. So North Sun by Ethan Rutherford. That one was a library ebook, not an audiobook. I don't usually do ebooks from the library, but I did on that one because it was on the National Book Award long list. It was good. It was 5 stars. I was not expecting to enjoy it. I think I talked about it in my reaction video to that awards shortlist. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was not my top pick, but it was close. Then I finished Seeing by Jose Saramago. Definitely 5 stars. Then 2525 Gardens and Creeks by Barry Rainwater, which was also a 5-star book. This one was different in that this was an arc of a science fiction book. Hi, dude. Kittens are crazy. It's 2 o'clock in the morning here. Kittens are crazy at 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, 2525 Gardens and Creeks. This arc had a list of songs, like a playlist, where the songs correspond to the chapters. So it's like having an audio accompaniment to the book as you read it, like a soundtrack. It was great. Some of the songs were a bit vague, and I would be able to find the appropriate songs, but I'm not sure everyone could, because a lot of them are Native American traditional music. As an American from the American West, that's not so hard. But if you were an international reader trying to figure out what the heck he's talking about, I think that could use some work. If this is meant to be a book that's appreciated by everybody, not just by people who are American and know Native American music. So that was a little bit of a problematic thing, because and it wasn't problematic for me. I enjoyed it. It was a 5-star book. But if I was recommending this book to, say, a friend in Australia or England, I'd have to give them some extra pointers about some of the songs to pick, because they might not know what those are. Specifically, certain kinds of stomping songs and stuff like that. I don't remember what its phrasing was, but that was my biggest concern with this book. Anyway, you'll see it if you read it. And I'm not sure it's that big of a problem. But I'm curious to see what international readers think of this arc. I'll put it that way. But I enjoyed it. Actually, the music did set the tone for some of the chapters in an interesting way. And the collection of songs was interesting because it starts out with like oldies, like old time rock and roll sort of songs. And then you get Native American music. And it kind of goes back and forth between those. And then there's other stuff, and there's actually some oldies that I'd never heard before. And I grew up on oldies, so that was a bit of a surprise that there were some that I'd heard them, but not where I could have told you what they sound like. And some that I literally heard them the first time when I put the playlist together to listen as I read. Also, if you want to just put a playlist together and listen while you read, you might need to pad the playlist with a few extra tunes because the timing doesn't work out to do that unless you're like a robot. And even then, I'm not sure the reading speed and the listening speed match. So I was having issues with that. I think I would just add in a few more similar songs or something like that. But it's hard to gauge that until you've read a few chapters to see how long it takes you to read. And I'm not sure how I would make that work. So logistically, there's some kinks to work out. But I loved the idea. So I would love to see more of it. The novel itself, it is sci-fi. It doesn't necessarily read as sci-fi all the time. Although that, yeah. It's very different. I've read a few other sci-fi novels that are similar in parts. But, yeah, it was an impressive bit of new science fiction. And granted, I haven't read all the new science fiction authors, so there's probably other people that are doing similar things. But within what I've had access to and read so far, it was fairly unique. So, highly recommend. Check it out. 2525 Gardens and Creeks by Barry Rainwater. And I'm not sure about the title. I think that could have been tweaked a little bit. It really did not draw me in. The cover was okay. I really just picked it because it was new science fiction, not because I was drawn to it by any particular thing about it. So as far as marketing, I think that could be tweaked a little bit too. But check it out. It was a fun book. And then I did some audiobooks from the library, because that's about when I found out we needed to start making some hats. So I listened to A History of the World in 6 Plagues, How Contagion, Class, and Captivity Shaped Us from Cholera to COVID-19 by Edna Bonhomme. This one was good. It definitely covered some things that I knew less about before listening to this book. I run a history section of a bookstore, and I read a lot of history, so I knew more about a lot of the chapters than probably a lot of readers do, but I think it would be accessible to anybody. It was a 5-star book, and covers some race and class related issues in plagues and disease that I liked how she handled them. It was good. And I listened to The Compound by Aisling Rall. Is it Ashley or Ashling? That's one where I need someone with that accent to say it so I can see what they actually say. But Aisling, which I'm guessing is either Irish or Scottish, because that name usually is that area. But anyway, this book is set in the U.S., I think. Pretty sure. It is kind of sci-fi, set in a game. It reminded me of the episode in Doctor Who, in the series, TV series Doctor Who, where they find themselves in the games on the space station. It's that kind of weird futuristic, last one standing sort of game, but kind of combined with dating games, like where they match up a couple during the course of the game. It was a bit weird. I liked it. It was 4 stars for me, though. It didn't completely work for me. There were bits where I was too confused for what it seemed like they were trying to do. Like, the point shouldn't have been for me to be confused. And so there was something that just wasn't clicking. I read enough in this sort of subgenre of like sci-fi light that I shouldn't have been that lost. And I'm still not sure exactly what was off, but it just, so I can see why I've not heard a lot about this one yet. It came out in June, so it's not been around that long, but I've not heard a lot from other people about it. And when I was reading it and chatting about it in sprints, I also didn't hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I read that one." So yeah, it's just not hitting quite as successfully as it could. And I think there's just something off about the storytelling. Maybe the order in which things are explained. It felt like by the end of it, there could have been like foreshadowing instead of throwing all the here's what's really going on all at once at the end. I would like to have kind of been figuring it out, not just voila, here's what's really been happening kind of stuff. So, I don't know. It's obviously their novel, their emotional arc and storytelling style and everything. Just, it didn't work for me as well as it should have. So, it was fun. I liked it more than I expected I would. And after the first couple chapters, I was about ready to DNF, but I didn't. Because it was an audiobook and I wanted to finish a hat. So, 4 stars, not terrible. I finished a couple arcs after that. We Must Not Think of Ourselves by Lauren Grodstein. This was really good. It was set in Poland, yes, during World War II. And was, I think it was set in Warsaw. I've read too many books this month. It's been over a week. Oh my goodness. Set in Warsaw in Poland. Was set in the Jewish ghetto that was set up by the Nazis, where they forced all the Jews to go into this one neighborhood, fenced it all in, and basically created a concentration camp out of a neighborhood that already existed. I've read a few other books that are set in that same space and time. So I was familiar with some of that, kind of background story of what's going on going into this one. But I don't think you would need that familiarity to get the story. Obviously, dark setting, dark topic. Don't read this one if you're feeling emotionally fragile. It's not going to be a happy ending. Yeah. Really well done. And this is one that I could see incorporating in special topics displays in my history section at the bookstore, because I do have the Holocaust shelf in my section. So we have a lot more than just history in the Holocaust shelf. I have a few historical fiction and other things that are related but might otherwise be looked for in a different section. So this is one where if we have extra copies come in, I could see one of the copies living in my section. So it's that caliber of historical fiction, Holocaust fiction. Yeah, it was really good. Weighty topic, but 5 stars. But definitely I would not recommend it to just anybody unless you're ready for that kind of book. Just a little bit of trauma, just a little bit of dark. Yeah. It could have been worse. I've read Holocaust fiction that was basically just pouring on the misery without any letting up. This one, there's nice things mixed in. People are not miserable all the time, even when things are bad. They find ways not to be miserable. And that is definitely one of the themes in this book. So, anyway, good book. Again, that was We Must Not Think of Ourselves by Lauren Grodstein. And that one actually came out in 2023. So, yeah, it was really good. Miss Veal and Miss Ham by Vicky Haywood was the next one. This one, try to remember what the theme was. Miss Veal and Miss Ham are a homosexual couple that Miss Veal has been the postmistress for this little town. And during World War II, she'd gotten this post, and that was great. And now she's been made redundant because World War II is over. The men have all come home, and they don't need her anymore. So she's been in this station for quite a while with her partner. And most people somehow just don't get it that they're partners. So they're not exactly in the closet, but they're not really announcing themselves as a couple either. So they're kind of in that nebulous, gray area. But they have a gay friend, a dude, who they hang out with, and so there's some great conversations between them, and it's a nice story about an aging lesbian couple, which I've not read very many of. I complain all the time about whenever I come across LGBTQ plus arcs, they're always dudes, 2 dudes. Like, I don't mind it, but I'm not a dude. I'd like some relatable representation, at least to the extent of being able to imagine, what it would be like to be one of the characters. And I'm not a dude. I'm still not a dude. Anyway, so this one was a nice break from that because it's definitely not dudes, but there's one in the story. It's just not central. But he had a partner as well that comes up in the story. So there's a lot of, older, time of life sort of stuff going on. Anyway, that I don't always see in literary fiction for LGBTQ plus couples. So I enjoyed it for that. I don't know from the Goodreads listing when it comes out because it says unknown on the publication date. I'm guessing that means it hasn't come out yet, but that is not necessarily the case. Certainly by the time you see this video, that may no longer be the case anyway, but keep an eye out for it. Again, that was Miss Veal and Miss Ham by Vicky Haywood. Vicky Haywood is a dame. Dame Haywood. And I'm not sure exactly why I know her name, but I knew that before I read about the author. So anyway, it is the Vicky Haywood that you might have heard of before. Because if I've heard of her, she probably is someone that other people are like, oh, I can't believe you can't remember who she is. Yeah. But apparently she writes novels, and she's pretty good at it. So that's fun. So then I finished The Magician of Tiger Castle by Louis Sachar. This is one that I did not get it as an ARC. I just listened to it as an audiobook from the library. I applied for it as an ARC. I just didn't get it. So that's okay. I listened to it anyway. It was really good. 5 stars. It was cute. It's kind of a morality play sort of novel. Louis Sachar wrote Holes. This is a new novel by him for adults, his first adult novel. But it still reads kind of all ages. It could be read by children too, and I think they'd get enough out of it. But yeah, it was fun. Then I did an ARC Between Two Rivers, Ancient Mesopotamia and the Birth of History by Modi al-Rashid. This one came out in February, and I almost ran out of time on it. But I finished it just in time before my file stopped working. And it's a 4-star history book. Nothing really stood out for me, but I've read a lot of histories set in that area. It's just ancient Mesopotamia, birth of history. I did like that the narrow focus, time period and place. But I don't know. It didn't stick out for me in particular. But I had customers this year looking for books for this time and place. So I will be watching for Between Two Rivers by Modi al-Rashid because I do know people that are looking for a history book like that. Yeah, so timely for them if we get a copy in at the bookstore. We are a used bookstore though, so somebody else has to buy it and then donate it to our bookstore for us to have a copy of it. It might be a little while. We'll see. And then we were in Banned Books Week. And I buddy read Fanny Hill with a bunch of friends on YouTube, on BookTube. Fanny Hill by John Cleland. This is one of those books that it is definitely smut, and is sort of the classic that led to being able to have modern smut and actually be able to get it and read it. Fanny Hill is a prostitute, and she's not pretending, and we get lots of detail, and there's a lot of sex in this book. I don't buy into the banning of books, and if a kid wants to read it, it's gonna go over their head, almost guaranteed. If it doesn't, I'm concerned about that child's source of sexual information, because it should go over their head. I read books that had sexual content this explicit when I was a kid. I did not understand what was going on. It was so weird. And I just, it was not for me. And most of the time I just skipped those pages because it was just weird and kind of gross. But, yeah. So, not a book for kids. There's some trigger warning-ish stuff that goes on in this one as well, but nowhere near modern smut levels of trigger warnings. I was bored. Keeping in mind that I'm kind of in the A end of LGBTQ A+. I'm in the A end. Or a D if they had a demi, but they don't put D in there. So I was bored. Yeah. But I finished it. 3 stars. Not badly written, just I'm totally not the audience for this book. But I finished it, and it's on the Boxall 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list. I can check it off. It is done. Yeah. Which is part of why I read it, because I was going to eventually. Yeah. So, then I got back to things I actually would want to read. I finished A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. This book came out on the 14th, so about 3 days ago, and was the last of the National Book Award long list books to be published, if I remember correctly. But I'm not sure on that, and some of the others may not technically be published yet either. I just haven't really looked. But it just came out. It was really good. 5 stars. I enjoyed it. Still not my pick for winning that award. If you want more of my reactions to the award long list books that made the short list, which this one did, check out my video about that, because I'm going to try not to go way too long on this video, she says, as she hits over 40 minutes. Yeah. So then I finished Palaver by Brian Washington, also on the National Book Award long list, and short list, I think. This one was okay. It was 5 stars. It was fun. I liked where the story ended up. A palaver is like a conversation between people where it's not going to go anywhere, or it's a noun or a verb, but basically a woman goes to Japan to stay with her son, who she's estranged from, because he called her in the middle of the night one night because he was having a rough time, and then didn't tell her why he called, and so she shows up in Japan to stay with him, just out of the blue. If my mother did that, she'd be staying in a hotel. And I know a lot of people who would say the same. That's just rude. You don't just show up in a totally different country. She's from, I think, the U.S., if I remember correctly. But she's not from here, from Japan. She's from our end of the planet, and she shows up in Japan. No warning, just ta-da, I'm here. Yeah. So, she, of course, does not get the warmest welcome. They were estranged. Remember, they weren't speaking to each other. He did call. And there is that. He did call. But, yeah, so they're trying to build bridges between themselves, basically. But as the title suggests, it's a conversation and an interaction that's not going anywhere. Or not going anywhere fast, anyway. So it was pretty good. Oh, and the son is homosexual and has a boyfriend. And his sexual identity was part of the problem that led to them being estranged. So that is important to this book. But yeah, it was good. It was not my pick for the win, and I will be annoyed if it wins, but it was a 5-star book. So, yeah. And I will not be surprised if it shows up on other prize lists. It was good. I finished Cloud Warriors, which was an arc for me, by Thomas E. Weber. This one is about forecasting the weather. It was really interesting. It's not showing a publication date for me on Goodreads. I don't remember when it was supposed to come out, but either it just came out or it's about to come out. Anyway, it was good. Might have actually come out and just Goodreads isn't caught up. I don't know. But Cloud Warriors was good. 5 stars. Science that's written for just about anybody. And current. It is caught up with at least where we were before Trump took office. Because that's as far up to date as they could be and meet their publication deadline and all that. And I finished One True Word by Snebjorn Angrimsson. Okay. This one is an Icelandic crime novel that I got because I got drawn in by the name of the author and decided that I had to read it because I wasn't supposed to be getting ARCs because I have too many. So I had to read one of the new ones. So I did. It was really good. It was 4 stars, not 5 stars, but it was good. I like Icelandic crime fiction. Never really 5-star amazing, but it's one of those subgenres that I go back to as kind of comfort reads. I don't know what it is about it. I don't like being cold. So I've thought about maybe I could learn Icelandic and move to Iceland. I'm not sure I would want to move to Iceland. Cold, you. But I do like their crime fiction. So that was good. I finished Get It Out on the politics of hysterectomy, which was History and Politics of Hysterectomy by Andrea Becker. This was 4 stars. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was very informative. It just didn't quite appeal to me enough to be a 5-star. I don't know what it was that made it not a 5-star. Still have to think about that one. Maybe just that it was very short, and maybe that was where it lost me. It was too short to accomplish what it wanted to. I don't know. And I finished Seven Social Movements That Changed America by Linda Gordon. 5 stars, highly recommend. Great history book for anybody who is even remotely interested in history and nonfiction. It's also obviously by a woman. So, that's always nice. I don't think showed up on any prize lists, but I'm not sure. I haven't followed nonfiction prize lists very closely. But this is one I wouldn't be surprised if it does show up on lists like that. Because it was really good. And yeah, if you're looking for some nonfiction, definitely worth trying. Along with that one about plagues that I got from the library. I finally finished and submitted feedback for My Dear Illusion by Sarah Reddy. 4 stars. It's a 900 plus page fantasy that I would not have read if I had just been going by what it looked like on NetGalley, because it looked more romancy than it turned out to be. But friends were reading it, and it sounded very much more like the fantasy I'm used to. It reminded me of Brandon Sanderson. So, yeah, kind of a little bit more romantasy than Sanderson, but not by much. If you've read the Mistborn series, there's really not much more romance to My Dear Illusion than there was in Mistborn. There's a little bit more sex on page, but not really. Like, maybe written so that it's more noticeable, but it's comparable enough to Brandon Sanderson that if you liked Mistborn, you might like My Dear Illusion by Sarah Reddy. Still only a 4-star book for me. There were things where it just pacing was off, or it was too confusing in places where it really was awkward that it was confusing, things like that. But in 900 pages, I'm not surprised. It was good. I finished The Usual Desire to Kill by Camilla Barnes. Probably my lowest rating besides Fanny Hill. 3 stars. I was bored, and a lot of other people that read it and reviewed it were also bored. It's very much a cozy novel that doesn't really go anywhere, which annoyed me. It needed plot or character development or something, and it didn't really do much of that at all. It was more just a couple hundred pages in the life of a cozy family that has llamas. Lovely. Anyway, I finished Becoming Sarah by Diane Botnick, which was historical fiction set around a woman named Sarah who was born in Auschwitz and was able to survive in Auschwitz without having been known of enough to be processed and have a number of her own. So she wasn't branded or tattooed. She didn't have any marks on her when she came out of Auschwitz as a orphaned child, but still was a survivor of Auschwitz. And goes through some harrowing times as a child before eventually landing in the U.S. And yeah, it was an interesting novel. I'm not sure how much of any of that was based on specific stories, although it seems like she was pulling together a lot of stories from a lot of real survivors, and the acknowledgments certainly back that up. Like, she was definitely basing her novel on a lot of real stories. I don't know about babies born in Auschwitz that might have been the basis for this one. But I'm not saying one way or the other because I don't know. This one took an interesting turn. It went kind of near future sci-fi near the end that reminded me more of Death of an Author by Nnedi Okorafor. So that was not what I was expecting at all. Like once the years started going past our year and the storytelling, like, okay, I guess we're switching genres now. Yeah, and I'm still on the fence about if that worked entirely, but it worked enough for me. I read sci-fi. It was fun, and it was definitely different because I've talked about another Holocaust fiction already. It's nice to not have them all be the same story. So this one was definitely different. I enjoyed it. It's also one that I forgot that I had, so I used it for a prompt for Fablin Readathon for a book that I forgot I had. This is one that I got as an ARC when we needed books with locks on the cover for ARC August, actually. So I requested it because it has a suitcase on the cover where you can see the lock on the suitcase. And then I totally forgot I had it. So that was fun. Definitely a good book. I don't think it's come out yet, so that's one to keep an eye out for. And I would not be surprised if this book is nominated for some things, because it was really well done. But I'm not sure which prizes I would expect to see it nominated for. Maybe Dublin Literary Award, but I'm not sure with the dates. Like I don't know if it's coming out in Britain same time as the US or anything like that. I'm so bad at the whole predicting prizes game. I need to be a lot more organized to do that part. But I will not be surprised if I see it on prize lists. I'll put it that way. I finished Escape from Kabul. This one, Escape from Kabul, the Afghan women judges who fled the Taliban and those they left behind by Karen Bartlett. I finished this one yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Oh my goodness. Talk about courageous people. Yeah. So when the U.S. Pulled out of Afghanistan, yay, we're not trying to be everybody's policeman, blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of the way it was framed over here was, we've been being everybody's policeman and it's ridiculous and people are annoyed and, you know, who gave us the right to be everybody's policeman. And there's definitely people in just about every country I've talked to people in that fall on that line. It's not just here that you know, is one way to look at the U.S. involvement in places like Afghanistan. As some of the women in this book pointed out, there's got to have been a better way of going about this, though, because what ended up happening when the U.S. left Afghanistan is they left it to the Taliban. And the Taliban moved in and took over, and all the women who were judges working in Afghanistan, there were about 100 something around on the order of 100 women who had been allowed to become judges during the time the U.S. was there, and now all of a sudden they're kind of something the Taliban is going to take particular exception to. That they basically have targets on their backs just by who they are and what they've been doing. So they're just left in the lurch that, there was no plan to evacuate them, no plan to protect them, and they would have been probably all rounded up and killed. And no doubt some of them have been. But a group of international female judges decided to do what they could to help to rescue these women, to help them escape. And this is their story. The women that were escaping and the women helping them escape. So quite the story. And definitely something that gives you different perspectives on an event that we all kind of have some idea of what was going on because it's been in the news, and anyone my age or older, we were in some way aware of Afghanistan and the U.S. involvement in it. Maybe not from this perspective. So, highly recommend. It was really good. It also does not have a publication date on my Goodreads listing. I don't remember when it came out or will come out. But that was another arc that I had on NetGalley. And then I finished Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. This is one that was on prize lists. I don't remember which ones. But I knew I needed to read it, and I found it as an audiobook from the library. So I was like, fine, while it's available, I will listen to it. It was good. 5 stars. Brazilian author, set in Brazil, I believe. And it was about a village that is on a plantation's land, and gets into issues of land ownership and really kind of the nature of power again. What makes it so that these people over here own all this land, even though these other people have been on this land for longer than those people have even been here, and all that kind of stuff. But these are villagers that are black or black and Indian. They've claimed Indian status because then they get rights and protections they won't get if they're just black. And who's to say they're not Indian, because there was a lot of interracial mixing anyway between the black people of Brazil and Indian people in Brazil. And by Indian, I mean local native people. I knew that there was a significant population of black people that live in Brazil, because I have an aunt who married one, or at least a descendant of that culture. So I knew something about that these people were Brazilian, and but not much more than that, so it was interesting. And definitely not something I find in novels all the time, so that was fun. Bit of a dark story. If you like literary fiction with trauma in it, there's lots of trauma in this one. If you find the cutting of tongues triggering, or something that you just don't want to read ever, don't read this book. Because I won't give away any of that. I don't know if it tells on the back of the book what happens, but if you are very sensitive to people having their tongues cut, don't read this book. I'll just say that. And then I finished Hamajang Luck. I've been curious about this one, so I listened to it as an audiobook as well. Hamajang Luck by Makana Yamamoto,
'Yamamoto, 'because I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a break after 2 years of being in Japan. And I needed something for a bre
Escape from Kabul and Crooked Plow, which were both very heavy books, and even the one before that, Becoming Sarah, was kind of a heavy book. So I needed a less heavy book. So a futuristic sci-fi heist. Even if it's a bit dark, there's still darkness involved in this book, was still a nice break from the previous books. So I enjoyed it. It's definitely a heist novel if you need something like that for a readathon or whatever. And does have strong LGBTQ elements as well. So useful for readathon prompts. Very colorful cover too. I can think of all sorts of prompts this book is good for. And a BIPOC author. Like, how could you go wrong with this book? You should probably read it. Maybe not a strong 5-star, like 4.75. But it was really good. And then I've been doing the Alexander McCall Smith books. So that is my month so far. Yes, we've crossed over into the hour mark. So this is going to wrap up this video. I'm not doing this again, so it is a 1-hour video. Yes. But we're caught up. And I will do lots of short videos this weekend for Dewey's. And I will talk about my TBR with those videos, as I am not doing any more TBR in this video. Yeah. So I'll see you guys in the next video, or on Sprint Somewhere, or in Dewey's, somewhere on the interwebs. Hopefully you guys are having a great reading month. Let me know how you are doing, what you are reading, if you've read any of the books I talked about. And I will at some point put a list of all the books that I talked about in the description. Maybe not right now. Maybe this weekend while I'm listening to an audiobook during the readathon. But with so many books and such a long video, a list of all the books would be nice. And I will put publication dates for all the ones I can do that for in that list. Even if it means having to go and look them up on NetGalley, because it is nice just to have those. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!